Hi, my wonderful sweet babies. It's Destin Choice, and you're listening to Time Out with Choice. So for today's podcast, I really want to get on here and talk about the recent controversy that's been going on with transgender women participating in women's sports. Now, I want to get on here and talk about it because if you guys didn't know, this has pretty much sparked a lot of outrage for the past couple of years. You guys know ever since Obama was in office, it was a really big thing for him to do a lot for the LGBT plus community, which I understood. And he wanted to do a lot of things for the trans community. One of them was being allow transgenders to be in the bathroom that they identify with.
A strong believer in equal rights for everyone.
Yeah.
A very strong believer in that. I was wondering, though, with all the pressing issues that you have before you right now,
Right.
why is the issue of which bathroom a person uses such an issue?
Well, you know what? It's a great question. Somehow people think I made it an issue. I didn't make it an issue. Our laws and our obligations is that we should try to accommodate these kids so that they are not in a vulnerable situation.
Or get their own bathroom. So, despite all the controversy that's been happening for the past 5, 6, 7 years, a lot of people have still had a hard time getting on board with the whole transgender thing. And let me just be very clear, if you don't like transgenders and you don't agree with their lifestyle, I completely understand. Just don't say anything demeaning or horrible towards them, and that's about it. It doesn't make you transphobic if you don't agree with transgenders. Let's just keep that in mind. So, recently there's been a lot of controversy because if you guys didn't know, 2 years ago, an incident went viral where 2 transgender black women decided to participate in the state championships for a Connecticut high school team. So, these 2 transgender black women were Andrea Woods and Terry Miller. And basically, they stirred a lot of controversy because here's the clip.
You're about to meet felt when it was time to tell their parents that they're transgender, they each revealed it by text, and now they have gone public with it, and they're facing opposition from people who say even though you may feel like a girl, you need to compete against the boys.
Terry Miller and Andrea Yearwood dominating the competition at the girls' track and field championships in Connecticut earlier this month, coming in first and second place respectively. And while it was a state race, their wins are making national headlines, not because of what they did, but because of who they are, 2 transgender girls.
When was the first time that either of you found any kind of opposition to you participating on the girls' team?
I was expecting it, so every day I'll go home, search up track and field high school, Terry Miller.
Because you wanted to know what people were saying?
Yeah.
Some of those comments were harsh. Critics complaining that Andrea and Terry both have an unfair advantage since they were born boys.
At what point do you decide, actually, it's more appropriate for me to be on the girls' team and competing with other girls?
I decided that the summer before 9th grade.
They've both started hormone therapy and say that for the most part they've been welcomed by friends, family, coaches, and administrators with open arms.
I had like these pink and purple furry boots that I wear.
Andrea Yearwood says even as a child she identified as a girl.
Learned to deal with it and grow tougher skin.
Yearwood is a sophomore at Cromwell High School. Born a boy, she's now transitioning and runs track and field on the girls' team. She and Bulkley High School sophomore Terry Miller swept the competition at the girls' track and field state championships last week. Miller is also transgender. Some parents and athletes say the first and second place finishers have an unfair advantage, and they want a level playing field. The Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Committee says their policy is that student athletes can compete for the gender-specific sport they identify with. That's directly in alignment with state law. But 2 petitions are now circulating, one in Plainville, the other in Glastonbury, to change that rule.
You have certain people that believe that, men are stronger and faster, and so I can understand that if an athlete is born male, and then competing as female with what they identify with, that some females will feel a particular type of way about it.
Some say reversing the rule would be gender discrimination.
Identify herself as a girl, then I think she should be able to run in a race because she's used the ladies' room, she can wear skirts. Why not run and play sports and stay active?
The cream rises to the top.
No matter if you're a boy or girl?
Correct. There are...
So, out of respect, I'll refer to them as transgender black women because at the end of the day, if they identify as black women, then hey, if you want to be a black woman, that's what I'll call you. Biologically, you're not a black woman, but if you identify as a black woman, that's what I will call you. So when they did win this race, a lot of people were very iffy about it, but then a lot of people were also very supportive towards them, because a lot of people saw it as this is a win for black women, black women, because for a while, black women have not won that title. They broke so many records and they broke so many milestones, and people saw it as a win for black women because they saw it as a wow, black women of color, they're killing it, they're dominating it, and that's why we should be giving them their flowers, and so on and so forth. But that caused a lot of controversy, because fast forward to now, 3 of the women who participated in the race are actually filing a lawsuit against the governor for allowing this to happen.
As a freshman, I was at the state meet and I got a bronze medal instead of a silver because I was running against a biological male.
There's a growing debate in the state of Connecticut about gender identity and sports.
Some families are saying that the state's policy on transgender student athletes violates Title IX, the federal law protecting students from discrimination based on sex in school programs and activities.
And I decided to speak out because I realized that it was really unfair that biological females had to run against biological males, and especially at bigger meets where it really mattered what place you got or what time you ran.
It's extremely intimidating and frustrating being forced to compete against someone who's biologically a male. It's scientifically proven that they are bigger and stronger than women, as they have more muscle mass and they have bigger organs. And it's just not a fair contest having a woman compete against a man, because no matter how hard she tries and how much work she puts in practice, the male will always beat her.
And that made me realize that I wanted to join her and speak out and restore fairness to track.
Alana is one of 3 high school students who recently filed a lawsuit to prevent transgender athletes from competing in her sport.
I felt like before I even started the race, I had already lost, and it was really disappointing to feel that way.
She's running because she wants to be part of a team, and we all understand the benefits of being part of a team at this age.
The CIAC putting out a statement reading, quote, Connecticut law is clear, and students who identify as female are to be recognized as female for all purposes, including high school sports. To do otherwise would not only be discriminatory, but would deprive high school students of the meaningful opportunity to participate in educational activities, including interscholastic sports, based on sex stereotyping and prejudice sought to be prevented by Title IX and Connecticut state law.
And Fox 61 receiving this following statement from the ACLU of Connecticut, reading in part, quote, this finding, which is not a ruling, is the latest attempt by the Trump administration to try to bully states into carrying out its bigoted anti-trans agenda. Trans girls are girls, and they should be treated as such on the track and in all parts of their lives. Connecticut, including the quasi-government agency of the CIAC, can and should continue to protect trans youth from discrimination.
Now, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with them, they did start transitioning around 2 years ago. So they've been on hormone pills for about 2 years. So a lot of people were saying, oh man, those bitches are just sore losers. They're just sore losers. At the end of the day, they should just work harder. And I'm like, yikes. Now I see why a lot of people were very pissed off about this.
How you could compete as another gender when you got a mushroom tip between your legs? And some balls swinging. Oh, I identify as female, so never mind this mushroom tip and these set of testicles dangling between my legs while I'm dribbling up and down the basketball court. And the girls, they shaking and baking, and they got their tits is going sideways. You sitting there with pecs. It's not sir, it's ma'am, and he ducking on the women, breaking all their ankles. Man, hey, dudes ain't got no place in women's sports.
So these women are now filing a lawsuit against the Connecticut government because the Connecticut government, right along with 13 other states, actually allow transgenders to participate in whatever sports they identify with. I had to speak to one of my female friends to get her point of view, and at first I couldn't get it, but then she really broke it down to me and said, okay, how the fuck do you think it's right for transgender women to all of a sudden be women 2 years ago, and now they can participate and come into our spaces and take privileges that are for us? Because to be fair, women go through a lot of shit. Women by the time they hit the age of 12 years old have grown-ass men flirting with them. When women hit a certain milestone in their age range, they get their periods and so much more. So women have a very unique experience, and women have to go through a lot of shit in society and societal pressures. So it takes more than hormone pills to be a woman. So I completely get why people are upset. And don't get me wrong, I don't think transgenders who identify with the genders that they are should play in the particular sports that they want to identify with. I feel like biologically, you should play in the sports that you are biologically born for. However, I could say the same thing about transgender men who were once women, because if you guys didn't know, there was this one dude screaming and yelling saying, "It's unfair, you're on testosterone pills, you're no longer equal to women." And I'm just like, so it's like, damned if they do, damned if they don't. And I don't really know how to feel about this. So in my personal opinion, I feel like transgenders should just get their own spaces. But then again, I don't know if that'll work, because it's almost like the Jim Crow laws. And please, y'all, trust me, I'm not trying to compare, racial issues to transgender issues, but when it came to the Jim Crow laws, a big reason why Jim Crow laws were implemented in the 1960s was because, blacks weren't getting along with whites, and whites weren't getting along with blacks, or the Latin community wasn't getting along with whites, and it's just like white people just wanted their own spaces because they didn't like when black people were coming to their spaces and infiltrating it and asking for more and special privileges. That's just how they saw it. And Jim Crow laws were horrible and they were wrong. But at the same time, wouldn't we be doing the same thing to the trans community if we gave them their own spaces so that way they could stay away from women's spaces? So women have every right to be upset, and the whole world has every right to be upset. But at the same time, transgender people do deserve to exist. They do deserve to be recognized. Their issues do deserve to be noticed. I just don't think it's right for them to come in and infiltrate into women's spaces and take the privileges from them. The same thing goes for that pad brand, Always. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys who use pads are familiar with the brand Always. Well, Always recently wanted to be gender inclusive, so they got rid of their Venus symbol that more so symbolized womanhood.
Feminine products are rebranding because of a push from the LGBTQ plus community. The brand Always just removed the female symbol from its packaging after transgender activists and non-binary consumers threatened to boycott
packaging. Procter & Gamble, Always parent company, made the move after calls by transgender advocates. So they argue the female symbol alienates trans men and gender non-conforming customers. LGBTQ health experts praise the change, saying the decision respects trans people. But online, there is some strong criticism going down.
A product that is pretty much targeted to us because we have menstrual cycles. We go through this every month. We've been going through this ever since we started having a menstrual cycle. I got mine when I was 14. This is for women having menstrual cycles. I repeat myself again. This is not for men. Oh, okay. We know y'all feel like you're women. All right, okay, just join the club. It's okay, all right? You're a woman. You're one of us. Now stop doing certain things to take away our femininity.
Boundaries. And I understand that transgenders deserve spaces, but, it affects women when women can't even exist in their own sports. Female sports doesn't even get press as it is. So I feel like transgenders should get their own shit. Like transgender Little League, the trans BA, the trans FL, the trans tennis team, and so on and so forth. Give them their own spaces, or the only way we can end this is if we just pretty much get rid of gender sports. Let men and women play together. But at the same time, that still gives an unfair advantage because men and women are built differently. And I do believe that men and women are equal, but biologically, men have stronger bone structure and stronger muscle mass than a lot of women. And if you put somebody who's in shape and has been training for the same thing, more than likely the man will probably dominate. And that's just biology, unfortunately. So I hate that they can't exist. I hate that this can't be, black girl magic and all that other stuff. But yeah, they need their own spaces. Because the whole transgender thing is still very new to a lot of people. And it's going to take a while for people to catch up. And the same thing goes for, the media. A lot of people hate the fact that they're implementing transgender shit into cartoons. And I completely respect transgenders getting inclusion in television and films and movies and stuff because trans people have existed since the beginning of time. You just don't really hear about them that much. And transgenders have pretty much been demonized. Because you guys know, all throughout the media, transgenders get labeled as these sexual deviants who want to lie and prey on men and
since you want to bring me on TV and tell secrets, I have a secret for you. I'm really a man.
Society was built off the basis of male and female. It wasn't built off of male, female, transgender, agender, this gender, that gender. It wasn't built off of those bases. So a lot of people are, they have to maneuver. If you guys didn't know, people were very pissed, but did you guys know that My Little Pony now has a transgender pony? Yes, My Little Pony came out with a transgender My Little Pony called Big Mac, aka Big Macintosh. And I do think that shit like that is a little bit extra, because I feel like they're trying way too hard to force people to accept this kind of stuff, and society just isn't there yet. Give transgenders their own spaces. Put them in movies and TV shows or whatever the fuck. But letting them do things like, if women aren't comfortable with transgenders coming into their bathrooms, women have every right to be uncomfortable. If women aren't comfortable with transgenders taking scholarships from them, taking trophies from them, that's completely understandable, because these black women, these transgender black women, they won medals and they got so much accolades and broke state records. And that opportunity could have been given to a biological woman.
We saw the videos and the clips. People take it personal. They don't see it as fun. How do you explain it?
We do sports as an outlet, and for some people, it's just a way to get away from certain things in their lives, whether that be home and just things like that. So I think sports has a bigger impact on the kids who play that sport, and it's not always all about winning and losing and things like that.
Yeah, people have marginalized sports now to where it's like a super serious thing. Why can't we just go back to where it's just fun?
Well,
it's
I
fun
think
to
because people get scholarships. They get full rides to colleges that they wouldn't be able to go to. They make a lot of money in sports, and that's the dynamic.
Yeah, and that's true. But I reached out to my coach. No one reached out to me. So I seeked out those opportunities for myself. If I really wanted to be a part of the sport that I'm in, it's not just about if you're good at your sport. There's also grades involved too, which grades is super important, number one, when it comes to school.
It'd be different if they started transitioning by the time they were 2 or 3 years old. But the fact that y'all just started transitioning 2 years ago, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. It's either you guys are going to have to get your own spaces, or they're going to have to eliminate gender-related sports overall. And if you do that, then there's not going to be any more women's sports. There's not going to be any more WNBA. There's not going to be any more Serena Williams. All these people are going to have to make all these sacrifices just to make the trans community feel comfortable. The same thing goes for the whole bathroom situation. I was talking to my friend recently, and I asked her how she felt about the whole bathroom situation. And basically, she told me, no. Cut your dick off, or you can't come into the restroom. And I know that sounds pretty fucked up, but a lot of women go through a lot of shit in society that transgender women will never understand. And transgender women are very privileged. They're very privileged to the point where they know how to exist in both worlds. And when you exist in both worlds, and you know how each world feels, it's even in the Black Girl Rock situation, a lot of black women were actually very upset because Black Girls Rock, which is a huge award show that's very popular amongst a lot of young black women, Black Girl Rock is now going to be including a Black Trans Women Award. And a lot of black women were very upset at that shit because they saw it as this is our space where we could be celebrated, because black women barely get roles and black women barely get accolades and awards. So why the fuck do transgender women who were men for majority of their whole life all of a sudden want to be recognized in our field? I get it and I understand it. So transgenders just need their own shit, because that's the only way that we could really avoid a lot of this shit. It's complicated, man. At the end of the day, Black Girl Magic, they identify as black women, so they're black women, and the world doesn't have to get down with how I feel, because we all have our opinions, we all have our whole outlooks on things. Transgenders deserve to be respected. They deserve to be included. They deserve to be respected. But when it starts to interfere with the rights of actual women, and women aren't agreeing with it, you have to understand what they're coming from. And then it really irritated me that one of the transgender black women was saying, well, then if I was in their situation, I would just work harder.
You do in life?
Let's just play devil's advocate for a moment and just imagine that you were both born girls
And then all of a sudden you had 2 boys who identified as being girls, and they said, hey, we're going to be on your team. And maybe now you're not performing as well because they are better.
I'm not going to discourage you or try to say, oh, it's not fair. And it would just push me to run faster. I'd be happy for them because they get to do what they want. They're happy, so then that should in turn make me happy.
You can't just say work harder because it's easy for you to say. You were bone structurally prepared before, like it's like structurally, bone wise, you're more prepared than they are. Because if a man and a woman is doing the same workout, guess who's going to benefit and build the most strength based off of the workout? Obviously the male. Males are structurally born with larger bone structure as far as their shoulders, their arms, their wrists, their hips, everything. And a lot of people have actually spoke on this. If y'all didn't know, Joe Rogan actually got dragged to filth for saying this.
Being forced to compete with her and trying to pretend that this is a level playing field. It is not. There's a difference in the shape of the hips, the size of the shoulder, the density of the bones, the size of the fists. That's a giant factor in your ability to generate power is the size of your fists.
It's also an ethical problem. I mean, it's not just competition here. Is you have girls getting beaten up by someone who used to be a man.
Yes, but people came down on me harder than anything that I've ever stood up for in my life. Never in my life did I think there was going to be a situation where I said, hey, I don't think a guy should be able to get his penis removed and beat the shit out of women. And then people are like, you're out of line.
He got dragged to filth to the point where a lot of employees at Spotify were actually walking out and trying to protest for censorship. A lot of employees at Spotify were actually trying to get him to censor his podcast because they didn't like his delivery about the trans community. He was being called all types of transphobic and shit. And then Victor Martinez, the famous baseball player, he even gave his thoughts on the whole trans community and about them being in sports. And he didn't fuck with that shit at all.
More. So, how to deal with that situation? That's the question, right? Do you create a separate league? Do you allow them to?
I think it should just be a separate league, because at the end of the day, my wife is in the restroom and, transgender, man goes in the bathroom, and, it's a problem, It's a problem because who knows if he goes in there, and starts flashing because he still likes women or she likes women still,
I'm curious to see where this is going to...
I think it should be a separate league, Separate league is just safer. You know what? People are, bisexual, straight, gay, pansexual. Why not a separate league, and just do that? Keep it separate and still be identified as a woman or a man, whichever way you feel like it. But you can't compare hormones and strength,
And both of them got called out for being bigots, trash, evil people, nasty. And I see both sides of the spectrum. If you want to refer to them as black women, refer to them as black women. If you don't, then you don't. It is what it is. But yeah, that was that for this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something from it. As far as this lawsuit, I don't know where it's going to go as far as these women trying to sue the governor for allowing this. And I don't know what's going to happen when it comes to women's sports. Like I said, if you allow transgender women to come into sports that are for women, then you don't have women's sports anymore. But then if you allow them to play with the gender that they don't identify with, what happens with the transgender now males who want to kick it with the females? It's just like, it's a win-lose situation. The only way you can end this shit is if you just give them their own spaces. But yeah, that was that for this podcast. I hope you guys learned something from it. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. Give your thoughts in the comment section down below. And yeah, that's that. Timeout is over.